electric to get you.
Well, I know I'm fairly handy, but I won't say I'm an expert at everything. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Yeah, you're kind of on your own, unless you cost a pro and.
Yeah. I'm not worried.
I'm just sitting right here.
Go for me. Me, I'm close to. Save me a seat.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, well, no. I will shortly. Throw them old retro campers in there. Amazing how much cheaper though. Amazing how much cheaper the tag on your purchasing with, boy, all. Yeah.
I didn't know about it. I literally found that yesterday. I mean, they're like, well, so many things go wrong. Yeah, I mean, apparently thank you. The old last I want to eat breakfast.
What's going on?
Oh.
Here says.
Yeah. My wife and I went to, how I found out about this place.
Good morning. How is everyone this morning?
Morning.
I got out, braved the cold, came out to hang out with us this morning. We appreciate that. Several of you we've seen through a number of our seminars, and we thank you for your continued support with that and coming out to spend your Saturday mornings with us. We're going to try to lighten this one up a little bit and have some fun with it. Understanding electrical, I will tell you that I am probably not the most knowledgeable candidate that we have as an employee here to discuss electrical with you. However, the reason that I agreed to do this one was I want to break it down simple for you, for those of you that don't understand what's going on electrically in your trailer when you pull into a campground and hook to that power cord at your campsite. I kind of want to go through and try to help you break that down to understand it of what's going on and what your limitations are with that. There's no doubt in my mind that there are people in the audience today that know far more about electrical than I know. One guy already stopped and asked if I needed him to go get his voltmeter out of his truck. Heck no, I'll be doing good to get through what I got planned. But I do want you all to ask some questions if you do have questions, and I'll go through this and try to break this down and maybe get a few volunteers for a couple of things here. So in thinking about how to do this and what to tell you all, I want to start at the beginning, and we'll say the beginning is you have got to a campsite and you've brought your kids or your grandkids, and your spouse is tired from riding in the truck all that way, and they're ready for you to get things set up and get it cooled down. And what do you do at that point? What is the process to getting your trailer hooked to electrical and then managing it properly once you do get it hooked up? So to start, the first thing you got to do is go to your source of power, which is going to be your pedestal at the campsite. For the example today, I'm going to concentrate mainly on 30 amp travel trailers, but there would be a lot of similarities to the 50 amp side as well. But we need to go back to that source of power. We need to test that, because it doesn't matter how good your trailers are set up, everything wired properly. If there's a problem on the campground's end and you plug into that unknowingly, you could have some pretty severe problems on your hand. So the best and the safest method for ensuring safety from the power supply at the campground is going to be a surge protector. You're going to plug this into the power supply, then you're going to take the cord from your trailer and plug into this end. This is going to light up, and it's going to tell you if that power supply is wired correctly before you plug your trailer in. If there's an issue with an electrical surge, that's going to detect it, shut things down, keep it from doing damage to your trailer. Many of them monitor low voltage, and we can get into that a little more as we go along, but that's an important feature that you want it to monitor. That said, if you don't have a surge protector and you're knowledgeable and comfortable using electrical meters, test the plug at the pole and make sure that it's testing properly for you. And I brought these as an example. This would be a last case resort. This just plugs in and certain lights light up to tell you if the neutral's wired correctly, if the ground's correctly, or if the hot wire is correct. And those are available at 30 amp and 50 amp as well. But assuming that everything checks out fine on the campground end, and for my example, we're going to assume that this is the plug at the campground. This is your power pole that you're going to plug your 30 amp trailer cord into, and this is going to be your electrical cord coming from your trailer. So, as I mentioned, testing. We're going to test and make sure that this is wired correctly, which it is. Then we're going to plug our trailer in. Now, that power comes into your trailer and it goes to your breaker box. How many of you have seen that little square plastic door? Some of them are under the refrigerators, but it's where all your breakers are at, all your fuses are at. And it's also where your converter is located. Well, that's where all the power comes to, hits that point, and then it decides if it's going to be 110 volt AC power, or is it going to be 12 volt DC power? On the handout, did everybody get a handout yet? Raise your hand if you did.
I'm in trouble. Yeah, I'm in trouble.
So as those make the round, look at the second page and you can kind of get an idea of what items in your trailer are going to run off 12-volt DC, what items are going to run off 110-volt AC. And that section in your trailer where that little plastic box is where all the magic happens that makes 12-volt power or 110 power for the items in your trailer. So it comes in there as 110, and then you hear everybody talking about my converter. My converter's not working. As service writers, we get phone calls all the time, and half the time they will say my converter's not working, and many times they'll say my inverter's not working, and they may mean their converter. There's a lot of confusion on which is which. So an easy way to remember this, any 30 amp travel trailer, even at the very basic, is going to have a converter. Converter is essentially a battery charger. So it is taking 110 AC and it's converting it to 12-volt DC. So that's hopefully an easy way to help you to remember that converter is a battery charger essentially. Inverter does just the opposite. It takes the DC power and switches it back, and that's we could go pretty deep into that conversation too of what all goes on there. But for the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish here this morning, or kind of get an understanding of how everything works, 110 comes in, and you can see here we're going to assume this is our breaker box. So our 110 comes out of our breaker box and it goes into our, what we're going to call this morning, our converter. So that converter is constantly working and it's going over and it's charging your battery and also running all of your DC components. So at this point, you've got, well, you're going to assume this is your microwave, your air conditioner. You've got power here. Of course, this battery's got a good charge, but we've got power at this point too. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when I signed on to do this, some of my coworkers said, "You're going to do the electrical part of Seminoles?" Yeah, I am. They wanted to get a bunch of props out for me to have to show you what can happen if you overload your circuit. Show of hands, how many do have 30 amp camper? All right, now of those that raised your hands, how many of those campers have a fireplace in them? Anybody have? Okay. Now those that still raise their hands, how many of you have kids or grandkids? All right, so you've got a 30 amp camper, you've got a fireplace, and you've got kids or grandkids. It don't matter if it's 100 degrees outside, those kids like to turn that fireplace on and see it glow, don't they? And unless they turn the heat element part of it off, you've got a fireplace trying to create heat. And you've got an air conditioner trying to catch up from the heat that it's putting off to cool things back down. And somebody's getting ready to go out to the power pole and reset a breaker at some point. You've got 30 amps at that pole. And as you look through this flyer here, the first page of this gives you an idea of what each item that runs on 110 AC calls for or needs in amps to operate. And you'll notice pretty much anything that creates heat is going to call for for a few more amps. So, coffee maker, 5 to 8 amps. Your water heater, electric skillet, all of those are high amp items. And if you flip to that second page and you look at the items that the 110 side controls, just the basics. These are just the basic items that it controls. Microwave is 8 to 13 amps. Air conditioner is 12 to 16. Refrigerator, when it's running without propane, calls for 5 to 8 amps. Water heater without propane is 9 to 13. Washer dryer, that's probably going to be in a 50 amp fifth wheel or motor home, but that's 14 to 16 amps. But my point is, I remind you, we've got 30 amps to work with. So you get in that scenario where the kids have flipped the fireplace on, I use that as an example, and the air conditioner's running, and electrical wire, those items are asking for those amps. And the only way to get it to them is through that 30 amp cord coming out of that power pole. And you're asking for more electricity and more electricity to come through there, and that's going to create heat. Ultimately, it's going to kick the breaker. But here's the result of trying to run too much through asking for more than what the circuit's designed to run. This is the result of it. But as my co-workers brought this up and showed me all these things, I thought I need something to where folks really understand what can go wrong with too much heat or asking for too much. So this is where I'm going to need a volunteer. Let's see. Sir, can you hold on to the screwdriver for me for a moment, please? Thank you. All right, bear with me just a second here. Now, when that starts to get hot, I want you to not on the metal part, sir. When that starts to get hot, I want you to turn it loose, okay?
All right, I believe you.
That's what the circuit breaker is doing. When it gets to the point where you've asked too much of it and it can't handle it anymore, it's going to turn loose of the screwdriver. It's going to pop the breaker. But, you know, your hope is that you as the manager of your camper or the manager of your amps available, you've got to be conscious of that and think about, okay, what kind of load am I asking it to deliver to the trailer? And, you know, that can be the end result. Fire can be the end result, you know. So not only is it an inconvenience of popping a breaker, but also be my luck. My wife is super cold natured. I can see her running the space heater over on her side of the bed, and me trying to run the air conditioner in the middle of the night. I got to be out there flipping the breaker. But you know, be mindful of what it's asking for, what you have available. Don't make a bag of popcorn in the microwave while you're running the air conditioner wide open when it's high noon and 90 degrees outside. You know, I mean, it may be something to where you may have to shut the air conditioner off momentarily. And folks will say, well, boy, that don't seem right. You shouldn't have to do that. Remember, Merle Haggard had a country song where he mentions before microwave ovens and girls could still cook and still would. Do you remember that? When they designed RVs and set up the 30 amp system, microwaves weren't part of the equation, you know. So as we've added more features and added more demands on that 30 amp supply, we've got to be more mindful of how we manage it and how we control that. So, something else that I wanted to show you, you know, I mean, I did show you the resistance or whatever on the 110 volt side. Give me a minute here. Man, can you hold on to this wrench for me? I'll show you how it does on the DC side for you here. No, just kidding. Just having some fun with y'all here. But questions? What's going on that you want to know that I haven't covered? And if I can't, I'll turn to a colleague that can for you. Yes, sir.
I was out camping 2 weeks ago, and when I went and plugged in my switch protector, it gave me the indication that the wires were reversed.
Okay.
I mean, everything still works, but is that problematic? Since I literally all I wanted to do is keep my furnace going because it was cold.
Now,
I didn't worry about too much else, but
this was at a campground, I'm assuming.
no, it was not. It was at a friend of mine's property.
And when you plugged your surge into the power supply, it indicated that it had reverse polarity, or
Yes.
well, that would indicate a problem on his.
Yeah, it's on his side, not mine. But
Yes.
is that, was I wrong to go ahead and keep it plugged in that night, or is it going to do any damage to my RV or converter or anything else like that, or my battery? Instead of
I wouldn't recommend it. If it's reading that you've got reverse polarity or there's an indication of a problem, yeah, the best thing to do would be not plug into that until it can be looked at and repaired, or where it tests the way that it should test. And again, purpose of safety. I mean, you hope that everything reacts the way that it's designed to, but the safest and best method would be not plug into that until it was repaired properly. Yes, sir.
My question would be, you're at a campsite, you've already paid for it, you plug in and it gives you a problem at the pole. Where do you stand on it with the campsite?
Well, I mean,
are they gonna say, well, can you go to another another spot, or can you just get your money back and say, well, I can't stay here because your power is all hosed up?
that's going to be, I can tell you what I would hope the case would be. In an ideal situation, if you would run into that, you would hope that they would have a repairman available, an electrician available that could get to them fairly quickly, and you hope that you're dealing with a campground that's reputable enough or large enough that they've got a good relationship with an electrician somewhere that can get to them quickly. And that's a pretty important feature for a campground to provide, and to provide correctly for its customers. So, that's ultimately going to fall on the campground, but you would hope that they would be the type that would be able to get someone out and get it repaired. Worst case, maybe move you to another spot and help you out with the fee for a night or something, but ultimately that would be on the campground. Yes, sir.
I've got 50 amp. One thing you need to, I came across, I went campsite, plugged it in. There's 2 lights on the top of that, and I didn't pay any attention. And I went in, certain things worked and certain things didn't work. And I talked to Denny, called him, because I thought something in the RV, which was new at that time. But he said, go out and look, and one of those.
One of those legs.
Yeah, and the campground had electricity. He came and fixed it.
So on the 30 amp side, you're dealing with 3 wires.
So
50 amp, you have 4. So you
if
have,
you got 50 amp and your lights work but nothing else,
right.
you might, you check your 2
Yes.
lights up there.
On the 50 amp side, as those wires come into that breaker box, they make another split versus the 30 amp. So one wire kind of takes one side, one of the hot wires takes
One's
the other.
lights and one's your plug-in and your electrical appliances and stuff.
Sure. Yes, sir.
My RV spends about 10 months of the year sitting in the barn.
Yes, sir.
I would like to be able to keep my batteries up, but I don't want to leave my inverter
plugged in all the time? Is there easy, or am I safe just putting a battery maintainer across my batteries on my feedback and stuff?
No, that would be, better than nothing at all. Ideally, if you're gonna store it and store it for a good while, recommend charging that battery fully and then removing it from the camper and storing it in an area where you've got, I'm not saying you've got to store it next to the fireplace in the kitchen, but store it somewhere where you have somewhat of a controlled temperature. You know, if you can keep it at a steady 45, 50 degrees, that's going to be a whole lot better than rising and falling. That's
It's actually two batteries, and you know how,
sure.
that's just not gonna happen.
Sure.
All the wires off.
But yeah, are you set up with a disconnect on your batteries?
No.
That would be
Isolate.
yes, that would be a good feature to add, would be if you could disconnect and then, yeah, your trickle charge or your charger on them to keep them maintained. Yes, sir.
Is that bad to just keep it plugged in? Like I park my RV next to the barn and then plug it in.
I do the same thing. I leave it plugged in all the time.
That's one of those questions where you can ask 12 people and you may get 6 answers from one, 6 answers from the other. If you're plugged in, it's charging it, it's keeping it maintained. I don't like the fluctuation in temperature would be my reason for, you know, if it's something where it's going to sit for a while, remove the battery just to keep it out of the elements of temperature, raising, you know, raising and lowering it. That would be the thing that would be the benefit to doing it differently than what you're doing. But is it hurting anything or no, it's going to continue to charge your battery and all your stuff will work properly, and you'll have lights whenever you need them. And, yes, if I have one at the house in the summer, I've typically got it plugged in.
What's normal converter life? How long are you?
Matthew?
That's one of those things where there's a ton of variables, but if you plug it in and leave it running all year long, wear it down that converter, that's all there is to it. Same with your refrigerator, anything that's gonna have heat, like you discussed earlier, is really not a good situation. So I would leave everything off that I could as often as I could. You should be able to get 3 or 4 years easy out of a converter. And if you're using it recreationally or unplugging when you can, you know, even longer. Technology's getting better with that stuff. But yeah, you should be able to get 3 or 4 years without a question. And if you're using, again, your recreational vehicle recreationally, where you're not plugging it in when you're not using it, letting it run all year long, you're gonna save on everything. I did have a comment for your hot neutral reverse.
Yes.
The camper will function, but it's a shock hazard is what it is. You ever heard of a hot skin, like where you grab the entry handle or the grab handle or something, get a bit of a shock? That's normally the situation there, your hot neutral or reverse. So that's the biggest thing with that. It'll function, but it's not the safest thing.
May make you step up the steps a little quicker. Yes, sir.
If you have your battery out and you plug it in to a, you know, your house or whatever, will that run everything? Do you have to have the battery?
At that point, your converter would be doing the job of the battery or supplying the DC battery.
Okay, but it would work, everything would work in there if you had your battery out.
Is that correct, Matthew?
Absolutely. There's no batteries in any of the units in the showroom. You can walk in and do absolutely everything in there. The again, it's not something you wanna do long term, you know, you wanna do it for a night or 2 nights or something like that, it's no big deal, but you don't want that converter to have to do 100% of the work. That'll definitely shorten the life, you know, over a long period of time.
Yes, sir.
So I take my batteries out and just, it's parked outside under cardboard, but it's still out all winter long. I just leave it plugged in so I can, if I want to go out there for something, I have some lights.
You sure?
I have the refrigerators off and everything else is off. But I just leave it plugged in so if I want to go out there, I can see in there.
Sure.
Does that have much effect on your converter?
I wouldn't say that that's going to have much effect, no. And like Matt has mentioned, yes, that's going to put some wear on the converter, on the lot a little bit. When you go camping, that's going to put some wear on the tires as you travel. So, you know, I mean, it's how you want to use it, and you know, I mean, they're made to use. You've got a better angle for
To be honest, I didn't hear the question from.
I said I take the batteries out in the winter, leave it plugged in, so if I want to go out there for some reason or another, I got, at least got some lights.
Is it difficult to plug in where it's at?
No, I got it.
I done plug it, again, it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
The repairs we see back there day in and day out, it's just my opinion. Anytime you can leave that thing unplugged,
Yeah.
you're saving on everything in there.
I mean,
Unfortunately, the stuff in these things are getting better, but they're not like your household stuff. And even the household stuff's getting worse. You can't have a washing machine for 15 years like you used to be able to. The stuff's getting better, but anytime something's sitting in a corner, or most of the time when something's sitting in a corner not used, it's pretty much okay if it's an appliance, you know, for the most part.
I mean, I got the plug there at home. To me, it's when you get ready to go, it's nice to get your refrigerator.
Oh yeah, when you're getting ready to go a couple days, week before, that's no problem at all. We're talking months at a time.
But during the winter, I still leave it plugged in, so I'll have, if I take the battery out and don't plug it in, I can do it out there in the dark.
Again, that kind of goes there along the lines of the question about how long is a converter going to last you.
Yeah.
You know, that thing is sitting there working and you're not using it at all.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, firing up your chainsaw and letting it idle in your garage. I ain't gonna cut no trees today. I just want it ready for me when I go out there. I mean, that's an exaggeration, of course, but you know, anytime your pocket knife's not gonna get dull if you're not using it.
Yeah.
You know, just anytime you can unplug and have that thing, you're just saving the life on all of it.
Yeah. Back to on the neutral wire, I learned from several older guys, a lot of the younger electricians trained at the Union Hall used a different wire for their neutral than the old self-taught electricians. And I have two people that done work for me that know each other, was trying to work together. One was very trained on one way and one the other, and they finally figured out what the problem was.
Yes, sir.
What is the?
So if the guy would have put his own thing in, he may have switched to neutral.
Yeah, happens all the time. And I'll tell you right now, we of course don't know everything.
Yeah.
We offer advice based on what we've come across.
Right.
But I can tell you right now, there's been a mini electrician wire up your 30 amp service.
Yeah.
220.
Oh.
So instead of your ground, your hot, and your neutral, or too hot, you know.
Don't
and
do that.
you plug it in. I mean, there's been churches, and for some reason, you know, the traveling ministry is what always pops up in my head because we get phone calls all the time about it. But we had an electrician come out and wire a spot at our church for this traveling minister coming through, and we've fried everything in his RV because it was 220. You know, they see that and they think dryer plug or welder plug and wire it up that way. So there's electricians that really don't know all the ins and outs about it. So we for certain don't know everything, but again, we're going to give you the advice based on what we see. Yeah, questions?
We have one down here.
What is the normal, you get in here with failed converters, How do they fail? Do they catch on fire, burn? or-
No, we don't see them get caught on fire.
When they fail, normally it's from a lightning strike, surge in power. There's capacitors in the back of that thing. It's most of them on a 55 amp. There'll be like 6 of them, and you'll know what happened a lot of times. And the people that make them know a lot of times because the top of that capacitor will literally burst. Yeah, so that in their eyes, that's not a warranty. It's not a product failure. Something happened and made that happen. So, but that's generally what happens. You don't see fire, flame, anything like that. You can in a loose connection, you know, on your converter, that kind of thing going into the box, but typically it just stops working.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying, like I've got my camper parked, say, in Florida, and I keep it plugged up year round. So you're saying if I unplug it, say today, and go back next month and just plug it up, everything should work okay?
Absolutely. Without the battery, you mean, or?
Yeah, well, without the battery or
Yeah.
with the battery?
Absolutely.
Say the battery's gone dead, then you're saying I'll still be okay when
You walk into any one of these campers in the showroom, we don't put them in batteries in them if they're coming in the showroom. You walk in any one of these and everything on the camper will work just fine. That's why your DC converter is minimum anymore on something like this, 55 amp. So that's going to give you 55 amps of 12 volt power. And that's what your campers are designed to actually, they're designed to take less than that. You know, they have a little bit of a leeway there, but yeah, that converter will power 100% of the 12 volt product in your camper.
But you don't want your battery to run all the way down. You don't want to just unplug it and leave it for a couple of months.
No, that's why you charge it and either have a disconnect or unhook the ground. Yeah, you want that to be charged because for years I didn't know you could freeze a battery. Dead battery will absolutely freeze, and that's where they get into weird warranty stuff too. If it's bulging, they know for the most part it's swelled. It's got low and it's froze and it's swelled up. Yep. You can also charge a battery in reverse. Didn't know that for many years. Guy hooks up his battery backwards, you know, that white and black instead of the red and black. You know, you hook them up backwards and plug that thing in, and you've got issues. You stick a voltmeter on it, it's actually reverse charge, which you can bring them down and fix that. But I had no idea.
Anyone else? Hi. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have solar and batteries, I'm not really sure what to do. I unplug them, and I'm not strong enough for me to personally disconnect the battery and try to disconnect and put them something. I'm not strong enough to do that, and I can't do it. So I've got them plugged in now, because if I don't have them plugged in, I'm going to turn it down. So that's bad.
What kind of batteries do you have in there? Do you know if they're lithium ion or if they're... See, that brings a whole different batch of things to the picture. You're not going to have many issues with the lithium ion as far as them charging all the time. So
other than the upfront price.
Right. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. So unplugged, your solar kit's going to be charging those batteries, and you really can't overcharge the lithium ion with the systems they've got. So not a big deal at all.
And we don't hear really plugged in because the solar, for some reason, is not charging. So then you have to go there or charge because it's not dead twice.
That might be just it might be just a switch. You know, something that we're doing wrong in the mix, or you're doing wrong in the mix to make them charge when they're, because the units on our lot, they actually sent out a flyer to us saying, hey, you need to have this in this position for this to happen when you're not plugged in. So we had our guys go out and make sure that, I don't remember you remember the switch where it's at or what it is?
No.
It's in a lot of the Springdale's Cougars, pretty much the prep units, but there is a switch that has to be in a position for that to charge.
It says short power limit.
You remember what that is, Chad?
There was a switch in the front storage compartment.
Right. And it was that switch that has to be in a certain spot. And if I remember right, it's the opposite of what it makes you think. So like it might be disconnected and you have to have it connected, or vice versa. It's the opposite really of what you think, but yours should charge. What kind of camper do you have?
It's a Coachman, it's a
I would think it would. What year is it? So I would think there would be a way to charge for that to charge not plugged in.
Yeah, the solar should charge.
Yes, I mean that's the point of it, honestly. So
So I'm doing something, I've got some.
not necessarily saying you're doing anything wrong,
Yeah.
but I think
The
there's.
pricing's not yet. Told me, we're not to do that back, wait a minute.
Nothing else, we could set something up to get it in and look at it. for
Yeah,
you
we
to see
can
what's-
all learn off of it. I mean, really, there's so many different variations on the setups and such, but that's not designed, or any of the systems I'm familiar with are not designed
It
for
says
that.
that it's got like a heater inside the battery itself, so it's not, it freeze, it's just.
Right.
running.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think there's as much a problem with those going dead as everybody says, to be honest. The technology, I mean, again, I bring it up all the time, but your lithium ion batteries and your drills and stuff go bad and they fire back up, without an issue all the time.
I'm hoping to lose soon.
Right? Not have to worry about the weather.
Yeah, get rid of some of this freezing weather so I can head somewhere it's not freezing.
Right?
This gentleman had a question.
Your converters on the newer models, are they what you call smart technology on the charging system? Where
Most of
when
them
that
are.
battery is completely charged, is it completely shut off? My understanding is some of the older ones
Capable of
are
overcharge.
go to a low charge as the battery gets charged fully. They go to a low charge but don't stop completely shut off.
Yeah, they're designed to do that.
Is there a year that
No,
you can
I
say
mean,
you actually have a
WFCO,
smart charger or
really, I mean, for the last 5 years, they've been pretty much like that. But to get the full, I mean, to be honest, to have one charge and shut off and work, you gotta have temperature sensors and all kind of things added to converters, which you can add. That monitors the temperature of the battery when it's charging and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a basic system like you're talking about. It's not 100%.
okay, so the battery maintainers that you buy aren't necessarily as accurate as they're led on to be.
I think a lot of the maintainers, like Battery Minder, Battery Tender, and those kind of things, are probably a little bit smarter than some of what the converters are as far as charging. I would feel more comfortable myself unhooking the ground and hooking up an actual battery tender, a good battery tender, than using the converter to monitor the state of charge on your battery. Now there are, like I said, certain systems. We've added the temperature sensors to the converters and stuff. Parallax, IntelliPower, they've got systems or add-ons that you can add to their converter where they make them super intelligent to do that. But most of them don't come with that from the factory.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna change up the question a little bit here. I don't know, you may touch on it, you may not. The unit I've got currently has the residential style refrigerator. I've never really been explained too much. I've got some kind of box that's in my front storage, and then I've got a button inside the camper too. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with any of this, or what I need to turn and shut off.
I'm assuming it's a fifth wheel.
Yeah.
So your box is an inverter. And that, as I mentioned, the converter switches the 110 volt AC to 12 volt DC. The inverter does just the opposite. So as you're traveling or even sitting still, it's taking the power from your battery, your 12 volt DC, and switching it back to 110 AC to power your.
Even when it's not plugged into shore power.
Correct. At that point, it'd be coming from that.
I didn't think it'd carry that, but.
Well, it won't carry it long.
Okay.
You're.
I mean, we pull it down to Florida every year, and we usually don't even buy any food or nothing until we get there. There's no sense in having this extra weight, in my opinion. You know, but of course with this thing here, there's no propane, you know, and stuff. But like I said, with these different boxes and buttons that's in there, whenever I bought it, they never really went into any detail about it, and there was so much going on, you know, trying to keep up with what was and what I wanted to ask or whatever. It didn't happen. So I was just trying to find out, you know, what this stuff is, what I need to do. You know, if I pull in, is there something I need to turn this stuff off before I take off? Do I need to turn this stuff on? Do I need to, you know, what? Because I usually don't even mess with it, to be truthful with you.
Well, if you're plugged in, you can shut the inverter off. You're getting everything from your shore power you're going to need.
The inverter, I'm assuming, is that box that's in the storage, front storage
Yes.
compartment. Okay.
Yeah, because it's going to.
Yeah, it says, I always says, I don't know, 12 point something or something, all volts like this, I guess, on it.
Yeah,
But
when
that
you're-
can be shut off if I'm plugged in the power.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The reason you want that to happen, if you're not plugged in, that's really going to put a draw on your batteries unless
Yeah.
you've got the solar system that's going to keep up with the refrigerator. There's a lot of units now that have the solar prep that you can add an inverter to and that kind of thing. But for the most part, you can have an inverter on your fireplace. You can have an inverter on your refrigerator a lot of times. And then the actual prep where you add 2,000 watt inverters and stuff like that are actually wired to certain outlets in the camper. So you get a lot more with that inverter prep by adding the kit than just the refrigerator or. So they've got individual inverters for certain items.
Yeah.
But that inverter prep, that's, you know, a $2,000 add-on that gets you outlets, certain outlets to the camper as well that you can power off your battery and your solar.
Now mine is prepped for the solar panel.
What do you have?
It's Columbus.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times, like on the Montanas, starts with a 200 watt kit. You add an additional panel to the Montana. Then you add the 2,000 watt Xantrex inverter. You've got shunts there, so it monitors everything, and the controller works off of it to know the state of charge through that shunt. And that gets you 7 different outlets, I believe, in the Montana that will function off of that, rather than just, you know, when they started with the solar, you might have had 1 or 2 outlets.
Yeah.
Only that when you added this big $2,000 kit, you'd still only have 2 outlets that were active for it. So again, they started pre-wiring this stuff where you get more use out of that prep. Should you decide to do the upgrade, and you can go from 200. They've got a 1,200 kit where it's 6 or 8 panels, and you know you can do quite a bit with it. But you're talking the batteries for that kit are almost 2,000 a piece. You get a lot more out of it. But then again, if you're sure, you know, you buy your camper knowing how you're going to use it, hopefully. And if you don't do a whole lot of dry camping, you don't need it. You know, I mean, it's nice to have maybe.
I don't.
But if you don't do a whole lot of dry camping, it's just not necessary.
Not normally. We are a little spoiled.
And that's great, you know.
As far as that goes, so.
If you're plugging in, you know, a lot of that stuff's just pointless.
Probably on the solar side of it, then it's not really beneficial or cost effective for me to take and spend the money for that solar panels up there.
If I hate to lose a sale on anything, but if you're plugging into short power most of the time,
okay, I appreciate it.
you don't need more than what it came with. I'll put it that way. You know, if you've got solar up there now, it's there to charge your battery and keep that maintained.
I've thought about putting something on for the batteries itself, but I've learned from losing batteries in the wintertime to pull my batteries out, and they're sitting in my garage up off the floor, and they're on the battery maintainers.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff. And since I've been doing that, I've never had any problems. But I've got 4 or 5 different things in my garage right now. It's on battery maintainers because the batteries get really expensive.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I thought about putting that solar panel on there to take and charge it, but my camper is inside a horse barn. Now it's not completely enclosed, so yes, there's still some light getting in there, but I don't know if it's enough light to hit that panel. It's going to do any good to keep it charged enough that it's not going to freeze. I've had some of those where like you said a while ago, it's swelled.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff, and I thought, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, yours might be. Yours probably has a disconnect on it, doesn't it? The battery disconnect.
in the compartment, there's a red handle, and you turn it, and it'll fall out, literally fall out at that point, so you know it's disconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, so at that point, make sure you're good and charged, shut her down.
Thank you.
That's one of his things. I was listening to his question. He said his come with a regular refrigerator and it had an inverter, 50 amp. Well, I got a 50 amp with the camper refrigerator, which is from gas to electric. Do they change, when you went to 50 amp, do they put inverters in them, or they still got converters? Or I've had this thing 4 years now. All I know is it's there, and I never looked, I didn't pay attention if it's a converter or an inverter.
Well, it definitely is gonna have a converter.
A converter?
It definitely will have that at least. Now, whether or not it has a inverter or not,
Yeah.
we'd have to dig a little deeper into.
Do you have a household refrigerator?
No, I have the regular camper that swaps from gas to electric.
Then you probably don't have a standalone inverter in there.
Okay, I've never paid any attention, you know, it was basically the same as what I had before, except it was 50 amp.
Yeah.
Probably don't. If you can run your refrigerator on LP while you're traveling, most likely then you wouldn't have an inverter.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Mind if I ask you another question?
Go right ahead.
Do you guys sell the tankless water heaters?
We can if
We
you
can.
want us to.
No,
We started them.
this is my first. And whenever, you know, they said, oh, it's got this tankless water heater on, I thought, oh man, that's great, you know.
The idea.
Well, for about a year, we fought with it because you get in there and you turn on the water and you try to adjust it, and 1 minute you're burning and the next minute you're cold. And we fought with them and fought with them. And come to find out, they didn't know too much about these things apparently either.
That is
You
the
know,
biggest
and I got a
complaint
hold
we
of
get
the
from
company finally about a year or so later. He said, I know exactly what you're doing. Now, if this is true or not, I don't know. It kind of works. He said, he told me, he said, you're trying to adjust it, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And he said, you don't do that. He said, you get in there, you turn it on, you know, where it's hot and stuff. You have to set on your panel to a certain temperature. He gave me a suggestion. He said, this is about, you know, for the norm. And he said, then you don't mess with it. For the most part, it takes care of it. But I miss my old electric gas hot water tank heater here after we fought with this thing for so long. So I didn't know if you guys do, what your thoughts are on these things or anything else.
We do. We've put a number of them in. And with those, there's a number of those that we've taken them back out and went back to a regular tank. I'm sure there are folks that love them. And the idea and the concept of it is great. But getting it to run at a steady temperature.
At the flow you want.
Yeah.
Is a hurdle.
A lot of times you're not using the cold side at all anymore.
And that's pretty
You're
why it is,
adjusting the
because you
temperature
adjust
by
the
using
temperature on
that hot
box.
side. You get it warm enough and it might not be enough flow for you. And that's really feedback we're getting from customers.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't have one yet. It's like everything else. They're getting better. And Gerard's got one of the best systems out there. They were recently bought by Lippert, your frame manufacturer. Lippert makes about everything anymore.
Yeah.
But so I'm hopeful for the future with them. But historically, Dometic came out with one. Suburban's got a decent one. Furion's got one, and Gerard has one.
I think Furion or whatever, I think is what this one is, I believe.
Furion was bought by Lippert as well.
Okay.
So I think it's all getting better, but I don't think it's there yet. It's not what you're going to get in your home for sure.
Well, I didn't know anything about putting a tankless water heater in a camper.
Yeah.
It just happened to me. It was there, and he walked around and he was showing it to me. And he said, "Oh yeah, it's got this." And you know, like I said, originally I thought that's great. You know, but it doesn't work like your home.
Yeah, it's definitely got a learning curve. Well, before it operated just like your household, you adjust it. You know,
yeah,
you're good to go. Now you got it's finicky.
Because we argued back and forth, and like I said, they didn't really even know so much more until I finally got a hold of the manufacturer itself. And whoever this guy was, he was on top of it. So he told me, right off the bat, he said, I know exactly what you're doing. That was before I even said anything. You know, so I think that's about it.
Yes.
I have a question. What about the new camper this year that's 50 amp? And when I'm plugging in at the home right now, I'm still dropping it down to 110 when I plug in. If I was going to put a 50 amp plug outside, so I could just plug in that way instead of stepping it down to 110. But you said that the churches were wiring them wrong.
Churches weren't a lot of
It
electricians.
said it would be 240, and then it splits it on the inside.
So on a 50 amp,
Totally
yes, that's a different animal than a 30 amp as far as the
Okay.
way that it's
So you
wired.
still wired up, it's going to be 240 at the plug.
Yeah, 50 amp is 220, 240.
Yeah, 240.
It is, absolutely. It's 2 hot to ground to neutral.
Okay.
Where on a 30 amp, it's 1 hot to ground to neutral. So
Okay, I thought you said the 50 amp was wired wrong.
No, it's
Okay.
always the 30. It's when they see those 3 prongs and think it's 220.
Okay.
Like your welders and your washers and dryers sometime. That's where they get into issue. The 50 is a 50. It's a 50 amp,
Okay.
220, 240. And the camper does a division there. That way, that's why there's nothing in your camper that's 220. So you don't have any 220 going to any leg on the RV. It's split by the converter.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Because I do travel with ministers, so I've been there.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you need to watch out for that is they'll have Sparky and he'll wire it 230 volt because they don't do RV.
Yeah,
Everything
it looks
that's
like.
really alien to them. And for them to wire up a 30 amp, 115 volt is wrong. So, but what you will come to is, as I've seen in the past multiple times, is so they've got a 30 amp plug there, and you get out your adapter. It's still going to leave you ungrounded. It won't blow anything up, but you'd be like, we was in Michigan, and she's like, I'm gonna horse the side of the motorhome because she's hurt. I'm like, it's fine. We're gonna travel for a few days. It'll be good. And when she touch it, it's like,
Yep.
So even though you come up to a 30 and think I'm still protected, you still got to make sure that's right because it won't ground it properly. It won't have the neutral it won't have the ground and the neutral coming to it. It'll have 2 hots and it don't. So it's got a hot on what should be a neutral because that adapter is wiring down there to your 50 amp plug,
Right.
and you'll still have a problem.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, we've seen many an electrician have to buy converters, TVs, air conditioners, because it doesn't take long for it to.
So it'll make everything get hot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you guys are here. I'm gonna pick your brains some more.
That's why we're here.
This thing came with whatever it is that keeps a constant check on the tire pressure. Of course, they didn't hook it up. I've just got it. How difficult? I mean, I don't even know. I haven't really even messed with it too much at all. I mean, that's something real simple that you can do without having to take anything apart or whatever.
It really depends on the brand of the system. If it's like Tire Link, which again is by Lippert, those systems are real easy to take care of. Normally about an hour labor. But
Is that something just Joe Public can do, or is that something that needs to be brought in to be done?
No, you could do it absolutely. It's just a matter of finding, digging in. We can help you dig in if you get us the information, the model of the system, brand of the system, that kind of thing. We can email you instructions, whatever you need to do.
Okay.
But I've never seen a tire system that the end user couldn't do. There's nothing so horrendous that it would make you have to take it to a dealer to do. But again, they're all different. Depends on who made it. TST makes a nice one. A bunch of different systems, and they'll hook up a little bit different. Some of them have repeaters if you're over a certain length. That kind of thing.
Is there any certain brand of tires you guys have had issues with or heard about
tires
and stuff? What?
Of tires?
Tires.
Tires themselves.
And the reason why I say this, I think this has got a Westlake on it.
Westlake's a decent tire.
Is it? 'Cause, I'm on a group. There's a group of Columbus people, and I'm on there, and I keep finding these different things. It's talking about these tires. The tread is literally coming apart and ripping up everything back there.
See,
and I'm thinking, now you're scaring me because I'm dragging it back and forth to Florida every year.
Are you checking your tire pressure before you go?
Definitely.
Well, see, there's a lot of people that don't. So there's so many variables with tires. You can't really say there's I can tell you that there's good ones, but I can't really tell you much about bad ones because things happen. You hit something, you know, many variables on tires, and of course everybody's going to blame the tire. But there's so many people that don't check their tires, period.
Yeah, I do.
You know, I mean, it sits there all winter. They
all
go,
good to go before.
they go to pull it to the lake. You know, the worst thing you can do on it with a tire is let it sit.
Looks like we've got time for one more, and I think I saw this gentleman with it. Okay. Chad, are we, the 30th, are we having a seminar the 30th?
Yes. And we can stand up here longer if you got more questions, want to talk about more stuff. We just got to cut this short, so.
And 31st is the axle brakes and tires.
So before we do close, just kind of off subject here, it's end of the year. Of course, next weekend we will not be here for Christmas. As employees or as an employee of the company, I think I speak for most of us. We know several of you bought trailers from you. Several of you have done business in our parts department. You're what makes it possible for us to get to provide our friends and families with gifts or, you know, we appreciate what you all do for us as employees, and we thank you for that. Wish you all a Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming, and like he said, we'll be here. We're here till 5 o'clock. So if you've got questions, come and see us, and we'll look forward to seeing you New Year's Eve.
You don't have to get up right now. You can sit here. If you still want to talk about the electrical, we can do that too.
You guys tell me what the yellow cap indicates on your valve stems?
Green indicates
I know
nitrogen.
green is nitrogen, but it